Let's talk about something that comes up when you do your standing Qigong practice, and that's the tendency for the mind to jump around a lot. Now, this is true especially in two big places. One, when you start to work on creating a really strong downward flow, which is really fundamental for clearing out your system, releasing a lot of bound, stagnant energy, and getting all of your fluids in your body to really saturate the tissues. So there are a lot of really good reasons to work on the downward flow. But the problem is, when you do that, you need to work on a smooth, continuous flow through the body. And when you're normally standing, it's not quite as clear a linear process, right? Your shoulder will start to hurt when you're down by your knee, or you'll notice something that's out of alignment that's collapsing over time that you need to make an adjustment on. So you get this problem of, how do I actually work on a downward flow on the one hand, but also not have my mind jump around to these parts that kind of call out to you as you're doing it. And then the second layer to this, really specifically, you'll come across this problem when you start to work on your arms. Because it's difficult at first, if you think about sort of the height of the shoulders and then coming down to the height of the middle of the chest, you should be in the arms at that same height as well as your chest. So ideally, everything moves through the body in a continuous flow down, but the first time, or like in the early stages of working on the arms, it feels like you have to be in the arms and then the torso and then the arms and the torso. So how do you address that issue without jumping around? And if you jump around too much, scattering your awareness and breaking the continuity. To address this the first way, I think you need to think about how we're actually trying to create the downward flow. And I'll often use this image, right? Tell me if this comes through. Glass of water and a dry sponge. And if you watch this for a minute, when I put the sponge in the water, right? This is your tissue in the body, and the water is your fluids. The fluids move because the mind directs them to flow through the body. And our goal is to have the sponge really full and saturated. When you start standing, though, your body's a lot like this dry sponge. You haven't consciously put your awareness into all the different parts. So you can't just jam it in, right? Watch the water level as this goes up. Think about the way that as the sponge starts to soak into the water, see how it's rising? The water's coming up, and the water's soaking through the sponge. That's what you want to think about, right? Think about saturation and the way the sponge will just kind of take the water in. That's what we're going for here, not, I plunge this in and dunk it in and it goes to a certain level. That's too forceful and it doesn't deal with any flow. Watch the way that the sponge will just take on more and more and more of the water, and think about all the little pores in the sponge, right? You need to feel like that sponge. You need to soak everything in. That's what we're after. So see how that's coming up a little bit at a time as we go? That's about the same pace that you're going to need to feel through the body. So if you think of one section, like you think of your shoulder like the dry sponge, as you rest the mind there, the fluids start to soak in and get saturated. It literally will get heavier and feel wetter, just like the sponge. Right? Those are all good signs. So in your standing process, it's not, okay, I check this, I check this, I check, right? If it's that mental checklist, you're on the wrong track. But if it feels like you're the sponge and the water's soaking into all these little pores and you can feel that speed, that rate of absorption happening, then you're out of the mental imagining game and you're into the feeling game and you're getting everything really saturated. So think about how slowly that happens. If you try it, drop a sponge in water and watch how that fills up. That's what you're trying to wait for. And as you're doing that, what becomes possible is, you're getting that sinking down, but you notice, oh, I'm collapsing too. You can let the spine open up. You can let your alignments come back into place without breaking that sense of everything soaking in. So there's this fear initially that if I focus on, if I lift the crown of my head while I'm trying to feel my toe, I'm going to ruin the continuity. No, they're two different things. When you really get a bead on that sinking feeling, that has a strong kind of glacial pace to it as things go down. But a little adjustment to keep your alignments open, that's not going to throw things off. And in fact, you're going to develop a sense for how much do I need to keep the skeleton open, how much do I need to keep the space inside the body full to allow the best possible sinking. So it's not really, I'm up here, I'm down there. That's too simplistic. It's really, how do I keep the body full, keep my alignments open, so that this natural sinking process is as strong as possible. And to that end, our second issue about the arms and the body, what you'll find is that you'll have to do this for a while, where you just go down through the arms and really it's like learning where all those pores are in the sponge, right? Just do your arms. And you want to try to do them both in stereo, and there are other reasons for that. But you just want to kind of get as clean a flow through those as possible, and then you'll come in and do the torso separately. So that's how you want to approach this issue. And over time, it'll get easy to kind of do both arms down through the body at the same time.